Hey, Jeff Manchester Music. Welcome. Happy Sunday, everyone. I'm really excited because in today's video, I'm going to start a series on mixing a track that I mixed. And I'm going to walk you through the setup, mixing individual instruments and elements like drums, bass, keys, strings. I'm going to talk about automation. I'm going to talk about color coding. I'm excited to talk about this because I really love mixing. And I want to make this series a bit more helpful and show you what it's like to kind of go back and forth and make tweaks and adjustments. So once we're actually finished mixing everything, we're not going to stop there. I'm going to be sending this mix off to a service that I found out a little while ago. And what they do is they listen and then they give you feedback and then you tweak it and then send it back and they give you more feedback and then you tweak it again. And then I'm going to send it off to the client. His name is Kevin Butler. And he's the artist here too. And we'll see what Kevin thinks and if any more tweaks need to be made. I want this to be like a really 360 view into the interactiveness and collaborative nature of mixing. It's not just you get something and then you send it off and you're done. You want to work with the artist to really realize their vision. And you also want to do as much as you can to get a great result for the client. So without further ado, this song is called In Bocca al Lupo. Not sure what that means. I know that Kevin right now is living in Italy, and that might be something in Italian. But why don't we first listen to the mix, and then in this video, I'm going to talk about the setup. And I'll talk about VCAs and plugin order and trim plugins and colors and how to set up your session should you get a mix in the near future. So let's first start by just listening to the track. This is fully mixed. I won't be mixing it as we go here. That would just take way too long. So what we're going to do is just listen, and then I'll dive into each section and we'll talk about it. So here is In Bocca al Lupo. Check it out.
Inside you is breaking apart, and I won't let you fall to the dark. The prison that kept you surrounded a star, and all of the worry over a scar. But you
things decay. You'll notice there's a little click at the end there, so I'll talk about addressing any repair issues that would probably need to be addressed before this goes to mastering, if it ever does. Yeah, so that's the track. It's kind of like a rock ballad, kind of folky song, which is pretty consistent with a lot of the other stuff that Kevin has done. So just, if you were to mix this, I think you should do what I just did, but obviously with none of the plugins on, you should listen and just kind of take notes. I have a pad right here. I always take notes, and see what jumps out at you, see what you might want to think about tackling first. Of course, you've probably got an order in your mind of what you'd like to do, if you'd like to mix drums first or vocals first and then everything around the vocals. But just listen, you know what I mean? Don't just jump in and start adding things, or, I know folks have templates too, and that can be an awesome thing for organizational purposes, but it can also just kind of force you to start getting in there and tweaking. And I think the most important thing you do, whatever your shortcut is to at least make time to listen. So that's the track. And let's go over how things are categorized for me. This is what I like to do. I've got my guitars at the top here, and you'll see that I've got my guitars in green, and they go all the way down. There's a lot of guitars in this track, and they correspond in kind of clusters depending on the arrangement. So at the beginning, we have our verse guitars, then we have our chorus guitars, and then we have our second chorus guitars here, and then our outro guitars. And I usually will rearrange them based on where they are in the arrangement. So when this mix was first sent to me, it had like all the tracks kind of everywhere, and I had to group them and categorize them. So if a verse guitar was down here, I will move it up so that it's right underneath all the other verse guitars, so I can kind of see them all really quickly and go, okay, I'm gonna, these are all verse guitars, etc. This just visually helps you get around in your mix. Color code them however you want. I know Andy Sheps is always like guitars are green and drums are red. I'm not sure if that's actually true, if he said those things, but he's very kind of strict about colors. I think go for a color that's going to get you where you need to go visually. And green guitar, let me pull that down or get something out of it, get a cricket out. So crickets are just like clicks and things like that, clicks and pops, people say. So my guitars are here, and you'll notice that I've got things everything's going to the 1-2 mix. However, I've grouped things such that, I can control the level of all the guitars, and they are all grouped in behind the scenes in the groups in Pro Tools, going to a guitar VCA. Now, this just allows me to control the amplitude, voltage controlled amplitude of the guitars. This does have, it does kind of mean that you can't always control send effects and things like that from one fader as you might if you were to reroute all these guys to an aux and then, move them from there. I got kind of into a habit of doing VCAs, and I really like them. They don't really work for every mix, but for this one, I liked the VCA versus a kind of aux channel. So I went with that. Not everything is going to a VCA, but you'll see here in the all groups, you've got like drums, keys, guitars, strings, all going to VCAs. I didn't put the vocals into a VCA. I'm not sure why. I don't know. I probably liked the way that I had them, so I didn't change too much. But the guitars are all in green. They're going to VCA, from which I can control the kind of overall amplitude relative to the individual channels and things. All from this VCA. So, if we solo this, we should just only hear guitars, right? And then further over. So once we go further into the guitars individually and how I mix them, we'll talk about what plugins are going where and all that stuff. The other thing I want to say is I really love trim plugins at the very end of the insert level. I just got into the habit of using trim plugins a while ago after watching Daryl Thorpe do a lot of mixing. I really like how it removes the need to, like you'll notice here, if I go, I'm mostly at unity gain on all of the sends and things are going to have different levels of gain, but I'm mostly on unity for all of the individual inserts, and that's kind of what I like. I can never remember if I was like 2 or 3 dB lower or higher. So I like to have the kind of master gain control of the track. I like to have a trim plugin responsible for that. I spend very little time over here in the mix window. I spend most of my time here in the edit window in Pro Tools. I like to have everything kind of controlled from this left panel. I do all my panning from this page as well. So I just really like trim plugins for that reason. I like to be able to be very precise too when I type something in. Like, so if I want this guitar to go up or down, I like being able to just click on this box, type in a new value, go down by 1 dB or down by 2 dB or something, instead of like moving a virtual fader with a mouse. I find that kind of imprecise. And I know that it can kind of be done here if I were to go and alter this, but it's still a fader, and I don't like that kind of interaction. I find that if I'm mixing in the box, there's some aspects of the box that I want to kind of continue working with. So working with audio in a linear way and everything, but in the box means non-destructive. It means, infinite recall and infinite plugins. So why should I stick to this kind of fader behavior of moving things up and down at a pixel level? I just rather type in the value -1 decibel or 2 decibels or up or whatever. And I can do that with a trim plugin and always know what I left things at. So I really like trim plugins for that reason. And so you'll see trim plugins all over this mix. If we go down, my basses are in blue. These guys are here. And then chorus bass. So further down below here, we've got our vocals. Vocals, there's a lot of vocals here, and they're in red. Vocals are red for me. I don't know why. And these are not going out any VCAs. So I got a mix that I really liked for the vocals, and then I just kind of like left them be. And again, you'll see in the I/O here, these guys aren't going to, the vocals are not going to an aux or anything like that. I do a lot of my mixing where I have things sending out to an aux and then going back to the channels, and then it's just easier for me to organize things that way. Again, I might ditch the VCAs and go for an aux in the future, because with an aux channel that's controlling also the kind of master loudness of that channel, you can add plugins onto it and do all that kind of stuff. The VCAs are limited. They're just for level and loudness, but I kind of like that simplicity for this mix. So we have in red here all the vocals, and again, these are organized like the guitars, right? So all of the guitar tracks for the verse are right next to each other in a cascade from top to bottom. Same thing here, where our verses are here. I know this is kind of obvious to some people, but like when you get a session, a lot of people will just kind of leave it as is in color code, but just really group things so that everything is nice and where it needs to be, in a order that makes sense to you. There's also a little bit of cutting and stuff that I did here. My keys are in yellow. I should make the VCA yellow as well, but I didn't. Drums are in purple. I believe percussion's in purple as well, and then the strings are in this kind of orangey yellow, which is kind of like keys. I consider them both to be kind of the same in terms of their importance in a mix. They're kind of fluff on the outside of the important stuff, which is drums and vocals. And in this case, a track like this, guitars. So, and I keep the strings at the bottom. These are not ordered in any kind of priority. But perhaps once I get a bit more into mixing stuff and less into composing stuff, I'll develop some kind of hierarchy visually that makes sense. And so everything's going to 1-2 here. And of course, I don't have like the print track and bounce track and all this stuff. Things are going to 1-2, and then I have my master bus right here. And that is kind of all, that's all there is to it. And I've got a bunch of plugins here. Some are metering, some are enhancing the sound and spreading it around the stereo field a bit too on the master bus, and we will spend time in a dedicated video to talk about the master bus. So that is the session. That's how I have everything kind of organized here. don't have a lot of playlists. I just got the tracks I got to mix with. The artist was responsible for the comp. For those that don't know, the comp is kind of like if you have a lead vocal track, you take the best takes from all of your takes and smush them together into a comp track. So that, in this case, Kevin did that work, so I didn't have to kind of figure out all the best takes and everything. Typically, that's the producer artist job, is to kind of send over the best of the best, and then as a mixer, you come in and kind of put everything together and make it sound great before it goes off to mastering, or sometimes you'll master yourself. In this case, on that master bus I mentioned a little while ago, things are pretty hot. Like you'll notice the levels are they're a little hot, and that's because if I'm going to send something to the client, I want it to be nice and loud, and then maybe I'll take the limiting, maximizing plugins off before they go to a mix engineer for proper enhancement of that loudness. I also do quite a bit of automation. So what you're not seeing here is, let's go to a vocal. Let's go to the lead vocal here. You're not seeing the automation. In this case, I think I use a volume trim. Nope. Let's go to volume. Maybe I don't have any automation here on that one. So there is some here on the volume trim here on the verse vocal. So if I hit E, we can go in and you can see where I've gone. I don't have a really nice fader set up yet. I really want to get like a PreSonus one fader thing, but it's going to be a mouse for now. And you'll see where I've gone in and just to get the most out of a word and make sure that it can be heard and understood, I'll go in and just alter the loudness as the vocal goes down. And there's some stuff I can do with compression upstream from this volume automation to ensure some consistency, but you'll find that with a dense ballad arrangement like this, you'll still have to go in and do a little bit of that automation such that, when the artist gets it, they can hear every word. And that's really important, But the last thing you want to do is have the vocal be so loud and everything under it kind of quiet or not that interesting, because then it just sounds like fake. You know what I mean? It doesn't sound like a real mix. It sounds like someone singing a karaoke track. So my goal is to kind of have like a nice surface tension between the vocal and everything else, and then go in here if I need to, and instead of like broad stroke, bring it, you'll see a trim plugin right here, bring the trim all the way up. If anything, I'll just go in, get a great level, and then just have some words poke out. Usually it's the end of words. So like this one here.
Now I'll let you fall to the dark.
So, very simple, squared off kind of automation happening here. I would like to get a fader to help me do that job a bit more elegantly, but we're not quite there yet. And there's really not a lot of room on this desk for more outboard gear and stuff. So that's the setup. And, to the point where if I want to bounce this, I just go here and I go bounce to disk and I'll choose the directory and everything and interleave wave file and be able to bounce it really easily. The VCAs make it so that if the artist were to ask for, I just want vocals, or I want to mix without vocals or whatever, all I have to do is mute the VCA. In this case, I couldn't because I don't have the vocal going to a VCA, but you get what I'm saying. And it's really easy to kind of send out like a modular mix or something like that, should they need it. So that is the setup. I've also got these little markers here to tell me when a chorus is going to hit. Some people are way more elaborate with the markers, and they've got it set up so you just have to hit like a number on your keypad in Pro Tools and you'll jump right to a chorus or something like that. I'm not really there. I'm okay just to leave a little marker visually and then, click it. And this lets you just jump around and things like that. So why don't we, after all this setup, which is probably the least interesting part for you guys, actually jump into some of the individual elements of this mix and how I mix them. And I think what we'll do is we'll start with the drums and the bass.